Within the university setting, the term Jungian archetype often carries a mystical connotation, a Lamarckian assumption that specific historical images are somehow passed down through our DNA. This interpretation ignores the physiological reality of the concept. Rigorous analysis defines archetypes as developmentally convergent mechanisms. They are evolutionarily conserved biological systems of readiness, the inherited neural infrastructure that anchors human consciousness to the natural world. This anatomical mapping identifies the subcortical midline structures as the primary location for these systems. This ancient region serves as the neuroanatomical bedrock where archetypal functioning is rooted. This neural architecture houses what Jaak Panksepp classified as the 7 core emotional systems: seeking, lust, fear, rage, play, care, and grief/panic. These systems are functionally mature at birth. Rather than waiting for environmental instruction, they proactively direct how an organism interprets and adapts to its environment. To explain this relationship, Jung used the light spectrum metaphor. The infrared pole represents the physiological domain, the seat of raw instincts and bodily symptoms. At the ultraviolet pole, these biological energies transform into the psychological realm, emerging as dreams, fantasies, and cultural motifs. Human consciousness cannot process raw instinct purely at the infrared level. We require the ultraviolet symbolic image to signify and evoke the underlying biological drive. By observing evolutionary behavior in the field of ethology, we can see the mechanical origins of these internal systems. Ethologist Niko Tinbergen identified what he called Innate Releasing Mechanisms, or IRMs. These are evolutionary structures within the central nervous system that remain primed for activation. An IRM becomes active only when it encounters a sign stimulus, a specific environmental cue that triggers a characteristic evolved pattern of behavior. In avian courtship, the green head of the mallard drake acts as the sign stimulus that engages the behavioral program in the female's nervous system. Konrad Lorenz extended this to mammalian traits, identifying universal geometric proportions in juvenile faces. These consistent features of babyishness are conserved across species to ensure a predictable response from adults. These universal traits demonstrate that archetypes are ancient survival mechanisms inherited from our vertebrate ancestors, rather than subjective cultural inventions. John Bowlby integrated these ethological findings into the human model through attachment theory. The physical appearance and distress signals of a human infant act as the sign stimulus required to activate the care system in the adult. This physiological release initiates an overwhelmingly powerful, biologically mandated bond. It is an inherited mode of functioning rather than a learned behavior. The clinical impact is measurable. Research by Klaus and Kennel showed that immediate physical contact after birth, the extra contact group, led to significantly higher IQ and language scores years later compared to those who followed standard hospital isolation procedures. This reciprocal activation is the functional reality of the mother archetype stimulating the child archetype, synchronizing the pair into a shared survival system. Disruptions in these early attachment systems lead to chronic emotional dysregulation, rooted at the subcortical biological level. From a Jungian perspective, traumatic experiences that are split off from consciousness coalesce in the unconscious, forming autonomous complexes around an archetypal image. This presents a challenge for traditional talk therapy. Survivors often find it impossible to translate this infrared subcortical panic into cortical cognitive language. Expressive arts therapy serves as a clinical bypass, targeting the archetypal core through nonverbal channels. By embodying universal archetypes like the hero or the shadow through improvisation and play, patients interact with these forces directly. Stepping into a character creates a symbolic container, providing the psychological distance necessary to externalize internal wounds. This use of ultraviolet roleplay allows the patient to safely process infrared biological terror, facilitating the integration of the shadow and the process of individuation. These same biological foundations scale upward, providing a framework for the macro-level structures of human organization. The principle of developmental convergence means that because these neural systems are universal, they predictably generate the same hierarchies and motifs within a modern corporation. The sage archetype manifests in management through external consultants and institutionalized knowledge systems. In its optimal form, the sage cultivates organizational wisdom, or phronesis. In its shadow form, the same archetype is used to appropriate the knowledge of workers to maintain centralized power. Executive leadership often embodies the king archetype. This role can liberate an organization through vision, or enslave its members through the activation of primitive fear. In customer-facing roles, we see the persona archetype, the psychological mask of manufactured emotion that employees must wear to meet corporate standards. Archetypal analysis in a business context performs a direct diagnosis of the primitive subcortical emotional systems driving the corporate machine. The trajectory is continuous, extending from the ancient mammalian brainstem to the sophisticated symbolism of corporate hierarchies. An archetype is accurately defined as the inherited biological tendency to form representations of a motif rather than a fixed static image. Whether the professional focus is on treating infant attachment trauma or analyzing the dynamics of an executive boardroom, the underlying evolutionary machinery is identical. Rooting these practices in ethology and affective neuroscience shifts archetypal theory from the realm of mysticism into the domain of empirical science.